I've mentioned before that I grew up in church, a very religious family. And we, in Sunday school and in sermons, a popular lesson was always about the size of our faith. And the Sunday school teacher or the preacher would reference those scriptures in the Bible that talk about having faith as a grain of mustard seed. Like in Matthew 17:20, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move. Nothing will be impossible to you. And we were always taught that the preacher or teacher would tell us that it's about the size, the external physical size of the seed. That meant that we just needed a tiny bit of faith, just a little bit. Just squeeze out, pinch off a little tiny bit of faith and plop it into your prayer, and then you can go about your day worrying and doubting. It doesn't matter because you dropped that, you had that little bit of tiny bit of faith, and that's all you need. Neville Goddard in Freedom for All talks about the mustard seed, and I love what he says about it. I'll just quote from it, chapter 8. The grain of mustard seed is not the measure of a small amount of faith. On the contrary, it is the absolute in faith. A mustard seed is conscious of being a mustard seed and a mustard seed alone. It is not aware of any other seed in the world. It is sealed in the conviction that it is a mustard seed in the same manner that the spermatozoa sealed in the womb is conscious of being man and only man. A grain of mustard seed is truly the measure of faith necessary to accomplish your every objective. But like the mustard seed, I love this part, you too must lose yourself in the consciousness of being only the thing desired. Let me read a part of that again. A mustard seed is conscious of being a mustard seed and a mustard seed alone. It is not aware of any other seed in the world. Like the mustard seed, you too must lose yourself in the consciousness of being only the thing desired. You remember those, you may not, but back in the 70s, in cereal boxes, we would get these little terrariums, little plastic terrariums, about the size of those containers that the toys would come in the gumball machines. And I remember I would get these every now and then, and it came with a little sponge that would be the soil, with a little slit in the sponge, and you take the seed and you plop it down in that little slit in the sponge, you water it, cap the terrarium, and you put it on the window. And I never had one live because I was always impatient. I would put it on the window, and my mom would see me fiddling with it, and she'd tell me, don't mess with it, leave it alone, you got to let it grow. But I was impatient, and so every couple of days I would go over to it and look left and right, make sure my mom wasn't around, and I'd crack that thing open and check it out. Still nothing happening. Cap it. Come back a couple of days later, I'm like, man, it's still not happening. Maybe I need to water it some more, douse it with more water, probably drowned it. A few days later, come back, all right, I still don't see anything. Something's not right. This isn't going right. So I start digging around with this into the little sponge and checking the seed and turning it around. And I, of course, would kill it. It never would grow. And that's what I notice I do. I'm aware now of this, and so I'm not doing it as often. But and I think a lot of people do this. We pray for something, and then it doesn't happen right away. We think it's not happening. And so we check that seed. Well, maybe it didn't do it, or maybe I didn't pray enough. Maybe I didn't pray enough. Let me water it some more. Let me slather on some more prayer. Maybe I need to do some more affirmations. That's it. I need more affirmations. Doggone it. And I canceled my subscription to Notes from the Universe. I could certainly use one of those now. Or let me check. Yesterday was 8/8, August 8th. And I did not do my affirmation on 8/8 at 11:11. Or I didn't light my candle or ring my bell singing bowls, whatever it is we think we got to do on the outside. That's when we start doing more of it because we don't see it. We're doubting. And Neville says that your imaginal act is that seed. Don't pick it up to see if it's growing. And he talks about imagination, and he uses that interchangeably with prayer, because prayer, if you look up in a concordance, it means motion toward. It's actually made up of two words, motion toward and to wish. So in imagination, because that's where we pray, we go within and we move into this state of consciousness, whatever it is we desire. If we're poor, if we're living in a state of poverty and we wish to be wealthy, we want to create wealth. We want to be rich. Or if we're in a state of unhealthiness, a state of illness, and we want to be healthy, we go within and we move in imagination into a state of health or a state of wealth or a state of loved and loving husband or wife. All of these things are what we do when we pray. We go within in imagination. And so I've noticed I'll start, something will happen. The facts of the world, what my five senses tell me, that it's not happening. I'm still broke. I'm still sick. And so I'll start to doubt. I'll start digging at that seed instead of just knowing that I've planted the seed and it will germinate. It will sprout. And it's going to come into the physical world. When I was really sick, I've mentioned it briefly, a couple of other podcasts. And then this one day, it was Thanksgiving morning, and I was just in a meditative, contemplative mood before heading over to my parents' house for Thanksgiving dinner. And that's when I started thinking about all the things that I wanted to do with my family. In particular, my daughter and I had a conversation just a few days before about going to the mountains, traveling, actually living in the mountains. And then all of these conversations that I had with my daughter and my family that had to do with traveling or terrain always ended with something like, well, how can I do any of that? I'm sick, my wheelchair won't work unless the Caribbean has wheelchair access to the beach. And I would joke, let it end with a joke, laugh it off. But this morning, Thanksgiving morning, I was thinking about that in this contemplative mood, in this little conversation I had within myself. And it went like this, it said, well, how can you do any of that in a wheelchair? And I said, you're right. And then I said, I guess it's time for dystonia to go. And I said, okay. And right there, the seed was planted. The seed planted in my imagination right there. And I didn't tell anybody. I didn't wake up the next day ticked off that I'm still having to grab the crutches or use the wheelchair. I didn't get upset because I was still incontinent. I didn't think, well, what was all that all about? It's not working. It's not working. I really didn't even think about it again. I just knew that it was going to happen, that this was done. It was a level of doneness. And that's what the point I want to get to today is that it's this knowing. When you pray for something or when you go within into imagination, imagine your wish fulfilled. Let it get the tones of reality. And then you have this knowing. You know it's done. It's already true. In Mark 11:24, it says, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you have received it. And then the literal translation is, whatever you ask for in prayer, be believing you've received it. So you're believing that you've already received it. Like my friend Mr. 2020 says, it's already true. And so the seed is planted. And the key is to just know and let that knowing fill your belly. You know it's already true. And like that verse says, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe you have received it. It doesn't say, believe you're going to receive it. If you're constantly thinking about it, your prayer will be answered like that, no problem, just as easily if you keep believing that it's in the future. It's going to happen. Oh, it's going to happen. Well, then it's always going to be happening some point in the future. But that verse right there, I love that verse. Whatever you ask for in prayer, and prayer's motion toward. You go within to imagination, move in imagination. You step into that picture of your wish fulfilled. Let the feelings just clothe you. You have new garments now, this new state of consciousness. And believe you've already received it. And remind yourself, whatever it is you've prayed for, whatever it is that you want for yourself or want to be or want for someone else, be believing, continue believing and knowing that it's already true. I love you guys. This is Feeling Twisty.